Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube. It's finally here. I'm so excited to be doing this for you guys. I mean, it's a lot of effort, but I'm excited to kind of give you all of my tips and tricks. So pretty much I'm starting this channel because every week I'm going to give you guys just tips, insights, recommendations, just things that I've learned over my travels. So if there's anything that you guys want to know, always put them in the comments below. If you have any other things to add on to anything that I ever say, just put it in there so other people can learn as well. But today what I'm going to be talking about is just a little bit about me and my history and kind of what I've been doing for the past 6 years. Yeah, hope you guys like it. So I unexpectedly fell into the life of a nomad. I've been traveling the world full-time on a budget and doing it solo. I want to share with you everything that I've learned along the way, so join me every Tuesday for tips, tricks and recommendations. So it pretty much all began at the age of 19. I am, well, 18 kind of. So when I was 18, finished school and I went to beauty school. So when I was in beauty school, people that worked on cruise ships came to us, they spoke to us and they told us, you know, about the cruise ship life. And I was like, you know, that sounds pretty cool. Like, not the fact of the travel, like that wasn't even what inspired me. I was kind of like, giving massages on a beach? Yeah, sign me up. So I applied for that. I got a job and I went to work on cruise ships. So this is my first time ever out of the country. Like when I was growing up, I had never left the country. A lot of the time when people are growing up, they get to leave the country and that's kind of what strikes their interest. For me, I'd never been out of the country. Massaging on a beach is kind of what struck my interest. And I was really lucky that my mum wasn't overprotective. Anyway, I went to work on cruise ships. I did about 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks in London first, where I went to a training academy. I had some days off and I did get to explore London a little bit. So that was my first kind of taste of exploring. And then I went on to the cruise ships where obviously I got to see some different countries. Now, when I was working on the cruise ship, I was still so oblivious to life when I was 19. Like, I didn't really care for travel. Like, I thought it was really cool, like how beautiful like the Caribbean was, and I was really lucky that my ship relocated, so I actually got to see a lot of destinations in comparison to what someone would normally see on a cruise ship, because we literally went from America and moved to Asia, which is literally the other side of the world. So I was really lucky that I got to experience more countries, but surprisingly, you don't actually see too much when you're on the ships. You know, you're so busy working, and when you do have your days off, you're getting off in a new country, but you never had time to research anything because you were so busy when you were at work. So you're getting off the ships, you're kind of just exploring, apart from the places where there was organized tours where I did that, and that was super cool, and that definitely kind of, you know, struck my interest a little bit more when I was like seeing like Petra in Jordan. Like, I just think of how amazing that was, but I still wasn't like obsessed with travel at this point. So I finished my contract, I came back home, and I wasn't really doing anything special. I hadn't gotten a job yet, and one of my friends was like, hey Sarah, do you want to move to Cairns with me? And I was like, I mean, yeah, I don't know, yeah. And I kind of, that was the first point that I realized I can do whatever I want. There was nothing holding me back. There was no reason that I couldn't. I had money in the bank and I was like, yeah, let's do it. So a month later, we moved to Cairns. Our deal was that we stay there and we work there together, well, live together for the first 3 months, and then anything after that, you're on your own in case one of us wanted to leave or whatever. So I ended up staying there for 9 months because I really liked it. And then after 9 months, I decided that I felt like I wanted to come back home. So I came back home. You know, I worked flat out for 1.5 years, which between 19 and now, which is about to be 25, that's the longest stint that I've ever stayed at home. In that 1.5 years, I did take one trip to Japan, which, you know, I really liked, and that's when I really started to be like, okay, I like this whole travel thing. Like, I like seeing different cultures and stuff like that. And I kind of realized at that trip, like, I think I could probably do this by myself, like, if I needed to. Like, why couldn't I? So when I was working, I was back home and I'd been working for ages, and I was just a bit fed up, and I was like, I need to do something exciting. So I started to plan that I would go for a 3-month trip to Europe. I was like, if I'm going to go to Europe, the flights are so expensive. It's the other side of the world. I may as well make the most of it. So I had been working at this job for about 11 months, and I was like, okay, I'm going to plan this trip, and then I will go and I'll quit my job. No worries. And then unexpectedly, the company that I was working for, they actually ended up closing down. So at this point, like, I had not booked anything for my Europe trip yet, but I was kind of like, crap, like that kind of puts a dent in my cash flow, and I needed lots of money for this trip. So I started looking for new jobs, and I got a new job, but this new job was what seemed to be the perfect job for me. It was a clinic and a spa kind of in one, so I got to do both things. It was the best of both worlds. It really had everything that I wanted, and I was like, well, if I really like this job, I probably shouldn't just quit and leave it. So I was like, maybe I won't end up going to Europe. Anyway, I stayed there for about 2 months before I realized it wasn't for me. It just wasn't busy enough, not fast-paced enough. So I was kind of at that point. I was at home one day, and I was just like fed up. I was just like, man, like, I'm so bored. Like, I want to do something exciting. And I was sitting there, and I was like, why don't I do a summer camp? You know, I always thought that that was cool. So where I got this idea from is when I was younger, there was this movie, and I actually have it here for you guys, The Parent Trap. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but I remember watching it and being like, that looks like so much fun. That's awesome. So I was like, why not do that? Like, obviously, I'm not going to be the kid, but even working there would be so fun. So I decided to apply for that. Meanwhile, while I was applying for this, back when I was living in Cairns, I'd actually met someone from Canada, and I was looking at their Snapchats like, oh my God, like, where are you right now? And they told me that they were back in Canada and they were in the mountains, and I was like, man, it's so beautiful there. Like, I want to go there. So when I was applying for my stuff in America and I'd gotten a job, I was kind of like, well, I'm going to be right near Canada, and I really want to go to Canada now. Like, why don't I go while I'm there? So I then applied for a Canadian working holiday visa. I had no idea what I was going to do there, but I was kind of like, I want to go. So I just had that there to fall back on in case I wanted to stay longer and get a job. So I went to America, I did my summer camp, it was amazing. Then I did a month road trip and then headed to Canada. Now, when I went to Canada, I actually had no plans. I was so busy when I was in America that I did not get a second to plan anything. So I had a week of couch surfing booked when I first got into Canada, and it was located in Calgary. Now, little did I know that there is actually nothing to do in Calgary. Calgary is so boring. So I was like, I have a week here, like, what am I gonna do? So I explored for a couple of days, and then I started doing some research, like thinking about what I might do next. But while I was meeting people, I was kind of getting recommendations of what I should do. So people were like, go here, and I was like, okay. So I went to different destinations that people had recommended for me to go, and then as my bank started to dwindle, I decided it was time to get a job. So I was working in the mountains. I started up in Jasper, and then I got a job there. I worked for a couple of months before I realized that it wasn't really for me. And then I went down into Banff, and I was working there for a while, which I really, really enjoyed. So in my 2 years in Canada, I ended up living/working in 3 different locations, and then my visa ended, so it was time to leave. A little bit before my visa had ended, I decided, like, I need to do this Europe trip. Like, Europe was on the agenda before any of this happened. Like, let's finally do this Europe trip. Like, break up my trip back home. It's cheaper to get there from here than from Australia. Like, let's do this. Like, I'd been saving the whole time that I was, like, in Canada, so I had money to spend. So when I was planning my travels, I always try and do something more outside the comfort zone than what I've done before. So by the time I was going to Europe, I'd done a fair bit of travel. You know, I traveled America, I've traveled Canada, I'd taken a trip to Mexico, taken a trip to Peru. So I was like, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to go to a non-English speaking country, and I'm not going to plan anything. So my first, like, time not planning anything was when I came to Canada, which scared me because usually I am an absolute planner. Like, nearly like OCD. I like to know what's happening. But when I came to Canada, I didn't, and I ended up loving it. It was so amazing just being able to go where people recommended. So I was like, I want to do that when I'm in Europe. So that's what I did for Europe, and I spent like 2.5 to 3 months traveling before I came back to Australia, and now I'm in Australia. So while I'm here, I'm only here for you know, I've been here, I think it would have been about 3 months probably before I leave. I haven't actually got anything planned yet, but I have so many ideas. But, you know, now that I'm home, I have like the awareness of how much freedom I have, and I can literally do anything that I want, like literally anything. Like even if money is a restriction in some ways, you can still travel even if you don't have savings. So being aware of that, and also being aware, like, I've been in a job before which I was scared that I wasn't going to get to leave because I wanted to stay in it. I don't want to put myself in that situation again, so I'm avoiding getting jobs where I might want to stay. So I make sure I like the job, of course, because you can never be unhappy, but I'm not going into jobs where I can really like grow somewhere. It's kind of like, that's the level you can be at, and I get my money there and I'm happy, but I can't grow to anything and I won't stay here forever. So I'm making myself really open to not being restricted, so I can do whatever I want, and anyone can do it. So the main restrictions that people have is if you're really close to your family, if you have a partner that, you know, you don't want to travel, or a career that you don't want to quit. So they're the 3 restrictions that I can totally understand. For me, I'm lucky I don't have any of those things holding me back. My mum's super supportive of me traveling and she doesn't freak out. So yeah, for the next couple of years for sure, I'm going to be on the go, and I want to keep giving you all my tips and tricks. I'm going to start doing some new stuff that I haven't done before, so like volunteering in hostels in trade of accommodations, working in some non-English speaking countries, and stuff like that. So yeah, like stay tuned every Tuesday for the tips and tricks, and you know, you can follow my Instagram for other tips and tricks on there that I sometimes post as well, or just stories of my journey, or my Instagram videos, which are like real time, what's going on, always posting everything that goes wrong. And then you can also join my Facebook page as well, which I just upload more photos than what I do on Instagram. And if there's anything that you want to see videos wise, always just let me know in the comments below. But if you like my video, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe so you can see my videos every week, and I'll see you next time.